All right, South Carolina softball loses to UCLA in Game 3. Their season comes to an end. We're going to talk about some of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and also why that loss may seem bad, but trust me, it's even worse than you'd even think. Locked on Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. I hope everyone's having a great weekend, as best you can be after the loss that we just talked about. And we're going to get into. It'll be a quick episode talking about what just happened and the softball season coming to an end. Before we do, I want to say thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, all capital letters, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Let's get into it. So listen, I'm recording this. The game has just ended. We've already had to redo the intro several times, and I don't even know if that one was a good one, but our beloved producer Allie's over here, and she's like, maybe put some little pep into it. But I'm deflated. I feel deflated. And I was saying this during the game, and there's a lot of positives that come from this season with South Carolina softball and all those things, and we're going to talk about those things because not to be a sunshine pump or anything like that, but there's so many positives that we should take away from this season that were all great things. However, this loss does hurt, and it does feel like, in my opinion, in the games that I've covered this year, I think about LSU, I think about the bowl game, the close loss against Auburn in basketball. Like, this just feels like it stings more than all those, and it stings mainly because of what you lost. And it's not just the game that you lost, but you lost a chance to go to your first World Series in Oklahoma City since 1997. And that sucks. Before we get into all the negatives, let's start with positives, okay? An incredible job by Ashley Chastain Woodard. I mean, listen, we talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago. I love when you see a former player or somebody that's from the area, went to school there, whatever you want to call it, but usually a former player that gets it, be put into a position to lead and coach a team at the university. Like, that's the same as anywhere. I think it means more to those people. I think the one I always go to, the one example I always use is Coach O at LSU. He didn't go to LSU, but he grew up an LSU fan, grew up in Louisiana. You could tell that job meant a ton to him. This job, I think, for Ashley Chastain Woodard meant a ton, and you could see it in the proof of the pudding, and in terms of what she did in year one, coming from Charlotte. This was one of those things where you see transfers and stuff, but you don't necessarily see them in the amount that you saw from this team. This is a team that was picked to finish dead last, 15th out of 15 teams in the SEC, and they end up going and winning 44 games. They get to a super regional, and they were 1 out away from punching a ticket to Oklahoma City. And it sucks. But I do want to start with the positives because it's one of those things where they did a tremendous job all season. In a year where now you get to kind of go lay the blueprint for what you want to be as a head coach, the type of players you want to bring in, the type of like identity you want to have for your team, and all those things. So the sky is the limit for this program. I think, again, anytime you come into a season and you go 15th in terms of your projections, dead last, which in the SEC is not like that bad. I think every team made the NCAA tournament, which is crazy. So it's like there's so many good teams in this league in general. So finishing 15th doesn't mean you're going to be a basement dweller necessarily. It just means that you're going to be, maybe a 3 seed in the tournament. We end up being a top 8 seed nationally and hosting a regional and a super regional, all that kind of stuff. So a tremendous job there. There were flaws in this team. I think it was very obvious from the beginning there were flaws in this team. But all they did was win throughout the season. And I think you need to really commend the job that she did. And she did it in an unconventional way. She brought 6 players with her from Charlotte, right? I think she brought in 9 total from the transfer portal. You only had 3 returning starters. You didn't have that many returning players. And what you're able to do with all of that, and again, in a league that is so deep and so good, it's very hard to come in year one and like plant your flag and win games right off the bat. And you don't see a ton of other teams that have a ton of transfers. I mean, you're starting to see some of the bigger names leave now. I think LSU just lost an All-American that's played there for 3 years. You saw Bree Ellis at Auburn. She's now at Arkansas, National Player of the Year. So it does happen, but like to build the roster in your first year based off of, hey, I'm bringing 6 people with me from Charlotte. This is what we have returning. We only have 3 starters returning out of the 9 that we can put into a lineup, and we'll see what happens, and we'll go with it. Offensively, this team was challenged. You didn't have anybody, I don't think, even on the year hitting over 370. I'd have to double check that in the safe side, but a majority of your hitters were, I mean, they were good, but like you look at UCLA's averages today, and maybe they're playing lesser competition in the Big Ten, but I think their first 6 hitters were all hitting over 340. They had multiple people with 17 plus home runs. You didn't really have that at South Carolina, but you did have a lot of bright spots, and you had most importantly, what you had from this team is you had all of the groundwork and foundation that's been laid to move forward and start to compete in a consistent year in and year out basis with the rest of the SEC. Now, getting to this loss, it sucks. You come out on Friday, and you win 9-2. And listen, here's the thing. UCLA is a good team. I was worried when you first got the draw because it's like UCLA is the powerhouse. I mean, UCLA softball is the Duke basketball, the Alabama football, the like whatever you want to say, like of softball. There's a reason why they have 33 Women's College World Series appearances. And by the way, it's not like they just have 33, which is the most in the NCAA history. And it's like their men's basketball program that won like 10 national titles, but they're all in the 60s. I mean, they've been to the College World Series 9 of the last 10 years. So the draw itself was not great. But when you have a chance to close the door, you slam it shut. And I say this all the time in football, and we're going to get into some of the stuff that's like woulda, shoulda, coulda. But I say this all the time in football, and it's aggressive and it's all that kind of stuff, but it's exactly how I feel from a competitive standpoint. When you have the chance to put your foot on someone's throat and in that game, you do it. You press down, you don't let up. And this team, for whatever reason in this moment, the moment got too big or it got away from whatever you want to say, and they lost. And that doesn't take away from any of the accomplishments from this season. But I'm going to tell you when we come back why this loss specifically, I think it's the worst loss I've had to cover since I've started doing this job 10 months ago. And I think it's one that's going to sting for a long, long time and way more than people realize. And I'll tell you why when we come back. Before we come back, we are going to talk real quick about our friends once again at Monarch Money. So, you guys have heard me talk about Monarch Money before. You're going to hear me talk about them again, and with good reason. They do a tremendous job. We just got back from vacation, and listen, I don't want to check my bank account, but do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, and it gives you full visibility and control over all of your finances. Not just some of your finances, all of your finances. Monarch Money isn't a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Listen, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. We'll be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks after this. Okay, so I teased this before the break, but this is why I think that this loss from South Carolina is the worst one I've had to cover since I've taken over this job. And There's so many reasons why. But the way you lost and what you left on the table is something I don't think South Carolina fans are going to get over anytime soon. And maybe I'm wrong about that, and I hope I am, because I don't want to sit there and dwell on how bad the loss was forever and all that kind of stuff. But this is one of those things that you're going to look up at some point and think, man, we were right there. I mean, like the door was shut. The door was shut. And I don't know what happened, but you take a 4-1 lead into the 7th inning of that game. And I'm talking about on Saturday. 4-1 lead in the 7th of that game. And whatever happens. And you give up 4 runs in the bottom of the last inning with 2 outs. You give up a home run as a walk-off, and you lose 5-4. Now, this is a 53-win UCLA team. They came in with 52. They are really, really good. But I will tell you this, and this is what bothers me. Okay? You open the inning with a leadoff walk. You have a 4-1 lead. Leadoff walks, this is the one thing I remember from my coach, and I will remember to the day I die. He told us this day in and day out. Leadoff walks score 63% of the time. You cannot do it. And especially when you just put up a crooked number, anything +1, or you are putting up runs and you're trying to slam the door shut or like end any sort of momentum or keep momentum that you've already seized, which in this case is like what you've done. You're 3 outs away from Oklahoma City. Leadoff walks can't happen. Leadoff walk happens. Then you get a strikeout. Then you get a triple. Person with leadoff walk scores. Then you strike out another player. It's 4-2 with 2 outs. 4-2 with 2 outs. And then you got to face the heart of this order. And the heart of this order was not anything that was to be messed around with. These are the averages of these players. You go 2, 3, 4. Their 2-hitter who hit the double, I think, to bring it within 1 yesterday, Pola, she's hitting 435 on the year. Then, of course, you get a Woolry. Woolry's hitting 414. She's won with 17 home runs. And oh, by the way, you have Grant, the first baseman, after them in the 4-hole, who didn't get at the bat yesterday in the final inning. And you were able to kind of keep her quiet earlier in the first game. She goes 2 for 3 in yesterday's game. That's a girl who's hitting like 385 with 25 home runs and 80 RBIs. I mean, that lineup was stacked, which is yet another reason why you cannot let it turn over and walk a leadoff walk. But you do. You have the final out. And this you lose that game, and it's scary for a number of reasons, because it does get to this weird situation where it's like, it's not a best of 7, it's not a best of 5, it's a best of 3. But if you take a 3-run lead in the 7th, and you guys know just as well as I do, if you take a 3-run lead in the 7th, and you blow it, and then you got to come back the next day, the odds of you coming back the next day with a lot of confidence are not great. And I would have almost rather South Carolina been the visiting team to try and get the bats going early than the home team in game 3. Because like any way you can try to get that that taste out of your mouth as quick as possible, that's what you want to do. You were the away team in game 2, so that means that UCLA scored and the walk-off and won 5-4, and then they got to lead off the game today, and you have bases loaded with no outs right off the bat. It was awful. Great job being able to get out of it with only giving up 1 run. But, like, it felt like all the momentum and all the fear and like doubt that had already crept in and the momentum that had been lost was so much bigger and so much more palpable than we may have known. It just felt like, from the looks of it early on, it was going to be very difficult to overcome that. Also, you're playing as a pitcher or a batter as well, I guess. But like, strike zone was very tight, very small. It wasn't unfair, and it wasn't just going against South Carolina. It was consistently small on both sides, but it was bad. It was bad, and it was a frustrating thing. And you just got this feeling that nothing. Like, it's just one of those things where everything that could go right, not even wrong, but that wouldn't go right for South Carolina, just wouldn't go right. You had bloop hits for UCLA. You had stuff that would hit off a pitcher's glove and go just out of the reach of the second baseman. And like, you had line drives hit to a UCLA player that would usually get into a gap for a double. This is the bottom of the 7th. and reaches up and jumps up, makes like an incredible web gem of a catch. And it's like, man, it's just like everything that happens. The 6th inning, you hit 2 balls. This is when it's 2-0. You hit 2 balls back to back to the warning track in right field, and it looked like you were like this close to tying it up. And in the 7th, the levee broke, and the you give up 3 more runs in the 7th inning, and you lose 5-0. And I feel just so deflated. I just feel so deflated because this team was such a fun story, and they were really, really good and one of the better teams in program history, and had a chance to do something that no other team has done in the last 28 years, and that's make it to the Women's College World Series. What hurts the most out of this, and they showed this afterwards, the way that this bracket is set up on this side and on this side. South Carolina's on this side of the bracket, right? Just visually speaking, they're on this side of the bracket. They were going to have played whoever won this series is set up for really good success, because you would be playing the 16 seed, because remember Oregon beat A&M or they won that regional, I guess, or what was it? Yeah. Wait, did Oregon beat A&M? Either way, A&M's out of it. So instead of being like 1 versus 8, 4 versus 5, you had Oregon as the 16 seed as a team that already had advanced, right? Then South Carolina and the winner of South Carolina UCLA would have played them. In the bottom half of the bracket, Texas Tech, the 12 seed, upset Florida State. So they were in. And then Ole Miss and Arkansas are in the bottom part of that, but Ole Miss is up 4-0 in the first inning. I don't know what would have happened, but when you're telling me that in a 4-side or a 4-team bracket to get to the College World Series final, you're telling me that you've got a 16 seed, an 8 seed, a 12 seed, and an unranked seed. And I say the 8 seed of South Carolina made it. South Carolina would have been the highest ranked seed to advance, and they would have been the front runner and the favorite to get to the Women's College World Series Championship Series. That's what sucks, because it's not just the trip to Omaha that has eluded you. You can easily make the case that, man, you were an eyelash away from being set up for tremendous success to not just make the Women's College World Series, but make the championship series and potentially win a national championship, or at least play for one out in Oklahoma City. Now that's a lot of, well, what could have been or whatever. But South Carolina most likely would have been the highest ranked seed going out to Oklahoma City. I say all that, and if you want some silver linings, as I'm saying that, Arkansas just hit a 3-run home run and tied up Ole Miss. So maybe they wouldn't have been, but either way, you would have been in good contention to potentially make the championship game. It sucks, because I think it's one of those things where you're gonna look back in a couple of years and think like, man, like the what ifs. Like we talk about Lattimore a lot and what happened there in some of those football years, like from 2011, 2013, like where you could have made the case. Like 2012, that South Carolina team. There's zero doubt in my mind that team beats Notre Dame if they got a chance to go to the national championship somehow. There's a lot of what ifs throughout every program's history, but with this one for South Carolina especially, it does very much feel like you had a chance that was so close to not just being able to get to Oklahoma City, but potentially play for a national title there as well. So it hurts. The sun will come up tomorrow, and we'll be back with another episode when it does. I hope all of you have a fantastic rest of your evening. We'll be back for Memorial Day, and we will have a show then. So until then, go Cox.